Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas, make them clear, hopefully give you some real insights.
That's the plan.
And today we are taking a plunge, a really deep one, into language, meaning thought, all through the lens of, well, a giant of 20th century philosophy, Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Get ready to have some assumptions challenged.
Definitely.
Our focus today is his Philosophical Investigations, a really seminal work. We're using the third edition, the English text, translated by 𝙯𝙯.
And that book itself has a bit of a history, right, with revisions and edit.
It does, yeah, which kind of shows how his own thinking was, evolving. It wasn't static.
So our mission really is to get into these revolutionary ideas. He just fundamentally questions how we think language works, how we even get knowledge.
Exactly.
Think of this as maybe a shortcut for you. We want to pull out the key insights, the really important bits, maybe a few surprising facts too, to help you get genuinely informed on this.
It can be dense stuff, so we're aiming to navigate it with you, show why it's still so relevant.
Okay, let's dive in. Where do we even start with just how radical Wittgenstein was?
Well, I think you have to start where he started, which was pushing back against the standard view of language at the time.
A traditional idea.
Yeah, and he often used St. Augustine as a sort of touchstone for that view. Augustine, in his Confessions, talks about learning language as a kid.
Right, I remember that bit. He basically says, adults pointed at things, made a sound, and he figured out the sound was the next thing.
Precisely. So the core idea is, words are names for things. Learning language is just learning the labels. Like someone points to 5 red apples, and you learn what 5 is, what red is, what apples are by association.
Seems intuitive enough, I guess.
It does. But Wittgenstein immediately says, hold on, even that simple example, 5 red apples. It's not just naming.
How so?
Well, understanding red or 5, it's not just seeing a color or seeing a quantity. You have to know how to use those words. How to, say, pick out the red ones or count 5 of them. It involves an operation, an action.
Ah, okay. So it's not just passive labeling. It's about what you do with the word.
Exactly. Words are tools we use. That's the crucial shift right at the beginning.
So how does he illustrate this? Does he give us a simpler picture to make the point clearer?
He does. He uses these famous thought experiments he calls language games. One of the first is the builder's language game.
Right, I've heard of this one. Builder A and assistant B.
That's the one. Imagine builder A just calls out words like slab, pillar, beam, and assistant B brings the corresponding item.
Okay.
Now, in that context, is slab just the name of the object?
Well, no. It's an order, isn't it? Like, bring me a slab.
Precisely. It functions as a command. It's a tool for communication within that specific activity, that game. And Wittgenstein says, imagine this is the entire language of a tribe.
Just those few words.
Yeah, to show that even a simple system can be a whole language, and its function isn't primarily naming, but action, coordinating action.
That really drives the point home. Language is action. It makes me think of, like, a toolbox.
He uses that exact analogy. It's one of his most powerful ones.
Oh, really? Okay, tell me more.
He says, think of the tools in a toolbox. A hammer, pliers, screwdriver, nails, glue.
All different shapes, different purposes.
Exactly. And language is like that. Words are like those tools. They aren't all uniform. They don't all do the same thing. There are, he says, countless kinds of sentences.
Not just statements or descriptions.
No. Commands, questions, greetings, descriptions, telling jokes, singing, praying, countless kinds. The meaning isn't some abstract thing a word points to.
It's how you use it, what job it does in the language game.
That's the core insight. Use is paramount. It just opens up your whole view of language beyond simple naming. You see it as this dynamic, active system.
Okay, so if meaning is use and language isn't uniform, that must mean that trying to find one single definition for a word, like the essence of it, is probably misguided.
Absolutely. And that leads him straight into another key idea, family resemblances.
Family resemblances.
Right.
Like with the word game. We instinctively try to find the one thing all games have in common.
Yeah, you might think, okay, is it competition, winning and losing, having rules, skill, luck?
But you can always find a game that doesn't quite fit the definition. Solitaire doesn't have competition, Ring Around the Rosie maybe doesn't have clear winning or losing.
Exactly. Wittgenstein's point is stop looking for the one essential feature. It might not be there.
So what is there instead?
There are similarities, relationships, and a whole series of them. overlapping and crisscrossing similarities, like features in a family.
Ah, okay. Like some family members have the same nose, others share the same eye color, others the build, but there's no single feature everyone shares.
Precisely. He compares it to a thread spun from many fibers. No single fiber runs the entire length of the thread, but the overlaps give it strength.
That's a great image. So concepts like game, or maybe even number, don't need a rigid boundary.
Right. They can have blurred boundaries, as he puts it, like an indistinct photograph, but they're still perfectly usable. We know how to use the word game just fine.
Hmm. That really makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How many of our really fundamental concepts might work like that, without a strict definition we think they should have?
It's a profound challenge to how we often approach concepts.
Okay, so we've got language as use, like tools, and concept as family resemblances. What about learning words? If it's not just associating names, how does, say, pointing work? Ostensive definition.
Yes. Ostensive definition, just pointing at something and saying the word. He argues that this is actually quite problematic on its own.
How so? Seems like the most basic way to learn.
Well, imagine I point to, say, 2 nuts and say that is called 2.
Okay.
How does the learner know, the number 2, and not say this type of object or the color or the shape or just the name of these specific objects?
Right. The pointing itself is ambiguous.
Exactly. Pointing only works if the learner already understands the general context, the sort of thing being pointed out, what he calls the stage setting.
So you need some prior understanding for the pointing to even make sense.
Yes. He uses another example, pointing to an arrogant man and saying, that man is not modest. You have to grasp the context, maybe the concepts of arrogance or modesty already, for that pointing and definition to land.
Got it. So meaning isn't just in the pointing, it's woven into our practices, our understanding of the situation.
Deeply embedded, yeah.
Okay, so if meaning is use and understanding isn't just a mental snapshot, how does this connect to following rules? Like if I teach you a mathematical series, say, add 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, how do you know how to continue? How do you know how to go on, as he puts it? Is there some special mental insight you grasp?
This is fascinating. Wittgenstein argues that understanding the rule isn't about having a specific mental state or process, like an aha moment inside your head.
Not primarily, anyway.
No. It's demonstrated by your ability to actually continue the series correctly, to go on applying the rule in practice.
So the understanding is the correct application.
In large part, yes. He says the way the rule or formula is meant, which is tied to how it's established and used in our practices, determines the correct steps. It's about the established use, not some hidden mental interpretation.
Understanding is a public performance, almost.
You could put it that way, yeah. It's shown in what you do.
But wait, this raises a tricky question, doesn't it? If following a rule depends on how it's meant or used, couldn't any action be interpreted to fit a rule?
The interpretation paradox. Yes, he brings this up. If any course of action could be made out to accord with the rule, then the rule wouldn't actually guide anything.
So how do we follow rules? Do we need an interpretation for every step?
No, he argues against that. We don't constantly interpret. Often we obey a rule blindly. We just act, we go on, without deliberation or further justification.
How is that possible if interpretation is always possible?
Because our rule following is grounded in something deeper than individual interpretation. It's grounded in our shared customs, our practices, our training.
Our shared way of doing things.
Yes, and this leads to one of his most famous and perhaps most profound statements. Agreement in language is not agreement in opinions, but in form of life.
Form of life. What does he mean by that exactly?
It's a bit tricky, but essentially it refers to the whole context of our shared human activities, our culture, our biology, the way we interact with the world and each other. It's the bedrock of practices upon which our language games rest.
So the rules make sense, and we can follow them without infinite interpretations, because we share this background, this form of life.
Exactly. It's the shared context that makes meaning and rule following possible. It's fundamentally social.
Wow. Okay. So he's completely reshaped how we see public language, meaning rules, grounding it all in use and shared practices. But then he turns inward, right, to our private sensations.
He does. And this leads to probably his most debated argument, the private language argument.
This tackles that really strong feeling we all have, that my sensations, like my pain, are fundamentally private. Only I can truly know my own pain.
Right. It feels intensely personal and inaccessible to others directly. So Wittgenstein poses a thought experiment.
Okay, what is it?
Imagine someone decides to keep a diary. And whenever they have a particular sensation, let's just call it S, they write S in the diary. This S is supposed to name this private sensation, understandable only to the diarist.
Okay. Seems possible, maybe.
Well, here's Wittgenstein's challenge. How would the diarist know they are using S correctly next time? How can they be sure that what they are calling S today is the same sensation they called S yesterday?
There's no outside check, no way to compare.
Exactly. There are no public criteria of correctness. The diarist might think it's the same, they might have a memory, but there's no way to independently verify if the memory is accurate or if the word is being used consistently.
So the private definition kind of collapses. It doesn't have stable meaning, even for the person themselves.
That's the argument. He says, a wheel that can be turned though nothing else moves with it is not part of the mechanism. A purely private definition, unconnected to anything public, can't do any real work. It can't function as a meaningful word.
But then,
Yeah.
how do words like pain get their meaning? We use them all the time.
Wittgenstein argues their meaning isn't derived from pointing inwardly to a private feeling. Instead, it's connected to the public, observable circumstances and behaviors associated with that feeling.
Like wincing, crying out, holding the sore spot, what he calls pain behavior.
Yes, and the surrounding context. It's not that others feel your pain, but that the word pain gets its meaning within our shared language through its connection to these public criteria.
So even our words for inner experiences are tied to the outer public world.
That's the striking conclusion. Meaning remains anchored in our shared practices and observable world, even when we talk about seemingly private things. It really makes you question how we understand others' experiences.
Definitely. Okay, so after tackling language, rules, and inner experience, what does Wittgenstein think philosophy itself is supposed to be doing? He wasn't building a big system, was he?
No, not at all. In fact, his view of philosophy is just as radical as his view of language. He saw many traditional philosophical problems not as profound mysteries about reality,
But as tangles, knots in our thinking.
exactly, knots caused by misunderstanding how our language works, misled by surface similarities between words or trying to force concepts into rigid definitions they don't actually have.
So philosophy isn't about discovering new truths, but about clearing up confusion.
Precisely. His aim, he said, wasn't to build theories, but to achieve clarity, to understand the workings of our language so well that the philosophical problems simply disappear.
Is that the fly in the fly bottle idea?
Yes. He famously said the aim is to show the fly the way out of the fly bottle. The fly is buzzing around, trapped by the glass, representing the philosopher trapped by linguistic confusion. Philosophy's job is just to show the way out, which was there all along.
So it's like therapy for intellectual knots.
He actually uses the word therapy. He saw philosophers as often being held captive by a picture, obsessed with finding the hidden essence of things like knowledge, beauty, or being.
When maybe the problem was the picture itself, the way language was tempting them to think.
Right. He suggests the fundamental fact is that we set up rules for language, and then we get entangled in our own rules when they don't work the way we expect in every situation.
So the goal is clarity. Once you understand the language game, the confusion dissolves.
That's the ideal. The problems should completely disappear. It's about arranging what we already know differently, not discovering something new.
A really different vision for what philosophy is all about.
Completely. Less about answers, more about dissolving the questions.
Okay, so let's try to recap this deep dive into Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. But the core shifts are, first, moving away from language as just naming things towards understanding language as a diverse set of tools or language games.
Where meaning is found in the use of words.
Exactly. Use over abstract definition. Second, the idea of family resemblances, concepts held together by overlapping similarities, not rigid essences.
Which allows for fuzzy boundaries, but still useful concepts.
Right. Then, the social nature of meaning, how rule following and understanding depend on shared practices, customs, our form of life.
Not just individual mental acts.
And connected to that, the argument against a purely private language, showing how even our words for sensations are tied to public criteria and behavior.
Which leads to his view of philosophy itself.
As a way to untangle linguistic knots, to achieve clarity and show the fly the way out of the fly bottle, rather than building grand systems, dissolving problems, not necessarily solving them in the traditional sense.
It's a profound shift in perspective across the board.
Absolutely.
So, to leave you, our listener, with something to chew on. If Wittgenstein is right, if language and meaning are so deeply tied to our actions, our shared practices, our form of life, what does that mean for something like artificial intelligence?
That's a big question.
Can a machine, just by processing data and simulating responses, ever truly understand language in the way Wittgenstein describes?
Yeah.
Or does understanding require actually participating in that shared human form of life?
Can it play the language game without living the life that gives the game its point?
Exactly. It forces us back to the question, what does it really mean for us, for humans, to understand anything at all? Something to think about.